Cedar Eve. I'm going to be teaching you how to do flat stitch beadwork. Some examples of the flat stitch beadwork that I've done are this S, a pizza slice, and an alien head. These I've made with the intention of sewing them onto a jacket, so they're beaded patches. This one has a pin back on the back of it. The materials you need for your project: you're gonna want a beading mat, ideally, or like a piece of leather or something that you can put your beads on. Will help them stay in place when you're picking them up with your needle. This is stiff felt. It's good for beading on. Needle, thread, a surface to bead on, marker, scissors, glue if you want to add on a pin back, the beading thread, not sewing thread because it will tangle easily. One of the things that I enjoy doing is drawing directly onto the surface. If you're not comfortable with that, you can draw on a piece of paper first, and then you can cut that out and attach it to this with a glue stick. Just glue it right onto the surface, and then you can use that as your guide for when you're laying your beads down. So I'm just gonna do a simple heart. After you're done drawing, these are fabric cutting scissors, which I prefer to use because it gives it a cleaner cut, doesn't fray at the ends. Just cut out the design that you've made. So next thing, after you've cut out your design, you're going to want to take your beading needle. In the classrooms, you're going to probably have a roll of this kind of thread, which is really great. It's beading thread. Miyuki thread is also a favorite. Fireline is also really awesome. It is now my go-to choice. So you're going to want to take your beading needle. Great thing about the mats too is you can stick your needle right into it and it stands up. I usually do about arm to arm's length of thread. I prefer to leave just a tail on one end of the thread and tying a knot or two on the other ends. So you're gonna want to try to get the knots on top of each other. That's gonna help stop the thread from pulling all the way through when you start your beading. So once you have your needle threaded and your drawing ready, you can go ahead and choose some beads. I typically work with 2 or 3 colors at a time, but it depends on what your design is. So when you start, you're gonna start by bringing your needle from behind. And you're gonna pull your thread all the way through until it stops because you have your knot there. You're gonna pick up 2 beads at a time and you're gonna let them drop all the way down to your drawing. You're gonna get them as close together as possible, and you're gonna make a hole at the top of the last bead that was threaded. So when you pull your thread all the way through, they lay like this. Then you're gonna come through the back again, through that first hole you made. You're gonna go through the row of beads. You're gonna pull your thread all the way through. So your beads are kind of just wrapped around again. You've just kind of looped the thread a second time to make sure that they're securely in place. Then you're gonna add your beads. So you're always gonna loop around a second time before you add on any beads. And it's the same motion. Just make a hole at the top of the last bead. Come through the previous hole. So in this case, you're not going through the initial hole that you made. You're not going all the way through to there. You're coming up only through the last couple beads that you added. So in this case, it's 2 beads. You're just kind of looping it around again through those 2 beads. And you're going to pull tight. So you're just following your line all the way around. Basically just drawing with beads at this point. I'm going to bead all the way around the outline where I've made my black marker. And then I'm going to come in and fill it with beads. When you get to maybe about an inch and 1.5 inches of thread left, you can think about tying off a knot. And it's really simple. You basically pretend this was the end of my thread. I'm gonna come back underneath, maybe 2 rows back, go underneath that piece of thread that's there and just make a simple loop. Now you're gonna pull it, and that's it. And I just repeat that a few times. So you have a loop here, go through the loop and pull the thread tight, and then you can cut it off. And then you can add another piece of thread. If you're gonna add a piece of thread, I'd do the same thing, maybe go back 2 or 3 rows, pull your thread all the way till your knot stops, and then go through all of those rows of beads before adding on your beads, just to make sure that it's secure and that it connects properly. And beading never looks perfect on its first try, so just try to follow the lines as best as you can. The more you practice, the easier it gets, the cleaner your lines get. Flat stitch can be used for any kind of design, really. You can also bead on leather if you don't have beading felt. The thinner the leather, the better, just because it's easier to go through with your needle. If you do have thicker leather, I'd suggest using Glover needles, which are leather beading needles. It'll make your life a lot easier. They're thicker, they're a bit serrated. The normal beading needles will most likely bend and break on you. So once you've finished doing the outline, you can start to think about filling in the inside with beads. There are different ways you can go about it. You could go across, you could go up and down. You could follow the outline on the inside, which is probably the route I'm going to take. You're just repeating the same motion. I would say 2 beads at a time, just because it looks neater that way. It doesn't look as messy. Especially with this single needle technique, you want to make sure that you're never putting more than maybe 3 beads at a time, because then it just becomes really loose. You can't rush beading. You just take your time, be patient. Hopefully you find inspiration in beading any cool design that you want to bead. Good luck.